Just ahead on the 30-minute news, will federal district court judge Roger Minor be the next U.S. Supreme Court nominee? A former Catskill resort goes up in flames and Lake George is on top of the world. Norm's on top of the weather, and Roger says the Giants are trying to stay on top of the Patriots. It's all next on the 30-minute news.
This is WNYT, Albany. Moskowitz, meteorologist Norm Sebastian, and Roger Weiland on sports. This is the 30-minute news.
Good evening. Bork and Ginsburg are gone. Now it's up to President Reagan to pick a Supreme Court justice nominee who can survive the confirmation process. ABC News is reporting that federal district judge Roger Minor of Hudson is one of the top two choices. NBC's Pat Collins takes a look at some of the other contenders.
President Reagan returned to the White House today, faced with the task of finding someone suitable for the vacant Supreme Court seat. The president refused to indicate who might be his next choice, but one of the contenders was flown into town yesterday, presumably to answer more questions about the job. He is Judge Anthony Kennedy, a 51-year-old jurist from the Court of Appeals in California. Kennedy is said to be a more moderate conservative, more moderate than Judge Bork, and therefore more acceptable to the Senate, which killed Bork's nomination. Also in the running is Judge William Wilkins of the Court of Appeals in South Carolina. Wilkins is a favorite of Republican Senator Strom Thurmond, who recently tried to get Wilkins appointed as the FBI director. Other candidates include Ralph Winter, an appellate's court judge in New Haven, Connecticut, who is a former colleague of Judge Bork at the Yale Law School, and Patrick Higginbotham, an appellate court judge in Dallas. Now, whoever the next candidate is, it's likely this time the president will check him out clean, clear through. I'm Pat Collins for NBC News.
That report did not mention Judge Minor, but his wife Jacqueline told the 30-minute news tonight that her husband and Anthony Kennedy are the only two remaining candidates who have the support of both Democrats and conservative Republicans. But she says the Justice Department seems to favor Kennedy. Douglas Ginsburg's withdrawal as the Supreme Court nominee was none too soon for one area congressman. Republican Gerald Solomon says Ginsburg broke the law when he admitted smoking marijuana, and that makes him unfit to serve on the Supreme Court. Solomon also told our Chris Brunner that the tax increase now being considered as part of a high-level negotiation in Washington is not going to help the economy.
We don't need more taxes right now. What we need are spending cuts. In 1982, the liberal spenders in Congress promised President Reagan that if he would give them a $20 billion increase in taxes, that they would give him a $40 billion cut in spending. He went ahead, gave him the $20 billion. They went ahead and gave him zero in spending cuts. I'm afraid the same thing would happen, and here we would be taking another 20 or $30 billion out of the pockets of the American people and not getting down to what we need to do, and that's to cut back on the spending of the United States Congress.
However, Solomon says he told President Reagan that he would consider voting for a tax increase if Congress promised up front to cut spending. Landmarks need not be pretty, and tonight a landmark along the Thruway burned to the ground. These pictures were taken with a home camcorder. What they show is the end of a once thriving resort which had become arguably the worst eyesore along the Thruway between New York City and Albany. Shortly before 8 tonight, the once popular but long vacant Bambi's Manor burned to the ground. State police are on the scene right now investigating. Arson is being assumed. No one was hurt battling the blaze. Nurses get no respect. They also say their shifts are undesirable and they are often underpaid. But according to a survey taken by the state university, fear of AIDS may be the biggest reason for the decreasing enrollment at nursing schools. There are 48 nursing schools in New York State. Albany Medical Center houses one of them. Albany Med is also an AIDS center. Right now, 15 AIDS patients are being treated in a special isolation ward.
We have a cadre of very dedicated, very interested people working directly with the AIDS patients. And they are extremely well educated about the disease also. Where you have less exposure and perhaps less education, I think you may have greater fear. We have no real problems with the people who work on the ward.
The reason those nurses aren't afraid is they know AIDS is not an easy disease to catch. Not like meningitis or other more common communicable diseases. But unlike the others, a full-blown case of AIDS always kills, and that has influential people outside the healthcare profession frightened.
My mother is scared to death about the whole thing, but I just try to tell her what I know about it and tell her that there really shouldn't be anything to worry about as long as I take the proper precautions.
The solution, according to Nunziato, doctors, state and federal health officials, is education. But because of fear, many others are choosing what they feel is an easier route, staying away. Health officials in Massachusetts fear their health care system may be overtaxed within 4 years. The reason? AIDS. The Commonwealth's Health Association says a current severe shortage of health care workers, including nurses, will make the situation worse. Right now, there are reported 932 cases of AIDS in Massachusetts. That's 9th in the nation. The State Office of Health Policy says a new battle plan will be issued next month. An AIDS-contaminated blood alert in California is being likened to a massive automobile recall. 30,000 users of the nation's largest prepaid healthcare organization are being told to take AIDS tests. The Kaiser Foundation is contacting people who got blood transfusions between 1977 and 1985 at its hospitals in San Francisco, San Rafael, and Vallejo. Company switchboards are being flooded with calls about the report that 1 in every 100 units of blood used there between 1981 and 83 may be tainted. 69 AIDS cases have been connected with blood from the Kaiser hospitals. So far, there are 15 lawsuits against Kaiser's supplier, a major San Francisco blood bank. Still ahead on the 30-minute news, a new development in Lake George.
The 30-minute news is brought to you in part by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
A deadly attack in Northern Ireland, the deadliest in 5 years. At least 11 people were killed by a bombing near a community center. That's where a crowd had gathered to honor Britain's war dead. Stephen Frazer reports.
This amateur video taken by a person attending the memorial service shows the horror of the first few moments following the bomb blast. Soldiers and policemen digging frantically with their bare hands to pull people from the rubble. The early discovery of several dead. The bomb blew out the wall of a community center, showering bricks and timber on a crowd sheltering from a driving rain in the lee of the building. The crowd had gathered for the traditional November service to honor those killed in 2 world wars. The soldiers and policemen who had planned to march in a parade were assembling at a distance from the bomb's location. Those killed and injured were civilians waiting for the start of the ceremony. In London, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, herself the target of a bombing in 1984, condemned those responsible.
I could scarcely believe it. And one of the reasons was that anyone who would do such a terrible thing would be condemned the world over by every nation, and I hope that will happen.
Nobody has claimed responsibility for this attack, but authorities believe it is the work of the Provisional Irish Republican Army, revenge for recent setbacks. Stephen Frazer, NBC News, London.
The stock market may have crashed, but multi-millionaire developer Francisco Gillespie's hopes remain high. Today, amidst plenty of hoopla, he held a party to show off his top-of-the-world development near Lake George. Chris Brunner was there.
And this is what they're selling at the top of the world on French Mountain, 1,000 feet above Lake George. The view. Of course, a clear day would help.
The houses are very nice and so forth, but what is absolutely unique is the fact that it's the most beautiful view, and that's what we're selling, really, the views.
And they are also selling condominiums with all the amenities. In 3 years, 170 of them will be built, along with a communal indoor pool and sports center.
Of course, all this luxury and all this view doesn't come cheap. There are 5 units still left here in Phase 1 that'll run you about $200,000 apiece, and the soon-to-be-built Phase 2 units will cost upwards of $260,000. And no expense is being spared in promoting these condominiums.
To celebrate the groundbreaking for the next 2/3 of the top-of-the-world development and to lure new buyers, Gillespie pulled out all the stops. He had a huge tent put up, hired circus animals, fortune tellers, and spread out all the food you could eat. Even brought in Anheuser-Busch's famous mascot, Spuds McKenzie, who was presented with his own canine condo. All this aimed at the well-heeled, even though they may be feeling a little poorer following the stock market's Black Monday.
I think they should. I think real estate is a great investment. It's where most of the money is. Most of the people who have made a lot of money have made it in real estate.
And that message seemed to be getting through to prospective buyers.
We're thinking of selling our property in Florida and come back over here.
Resort real estate prices have been skyrocketing. $200,000 may seem cheap in 10 years, and if it doesn't go up, well, you've still got the view. Chris Brunner, the 30-Minute News overlooking Lake George.
This next story is a rather dramatic contrast. Fewer Americans lived in poverty. That's according to the last census survey, but more of those who did were Hispanics. The federal government reports 33.1 million Americans were living in poverty during 1985. That means there are about 1.5% fewer Americans feeding families of four on less than $11,000 a year. But the number of Hispanics living below the poverty line was way up. In the latest survey, they make up 16% of America's poor compared to 11% in 1984. If your child's expecting to see some Rambo toys under the Christmas tree this year, it may not be such a good idea. That's according to an Illinois optometrist. Dr. Philip Kaufman has released his 10th annual Christmas list of potentially dangerous toys. Kaufman has singled out 13 items expected to be hot sellers this Christmas season. 3 are inspired by the movie hero Rambo. The doctor says some 160,000 children suffer eye injuries from toys every year, and most of those injuries are around the holidays. Coming up on the 30-Minute News, why don't we just give him a copy of one of Norm's weather maps? That's nice and safe. He's going to be around with the forecast in just a moment. 6,000 tiring firefighters in the South may get rain relief tonight. 1 death and 28 injuries are blamed on a West Virginia wildfire where a bus crashed when the smoke blurred the driver's vision. But with hundreds of fires raging in 13 states, progress is reported today, and rain forecast for tonight and tomorrow may help. Now, some of that smoke is getting in your eyes, ears, nose, and throat. Health officials are urging you to be careful. People with respiratory problems who may be planning some late-night outside activities are told to stay inside. The smoke rode in on the current weather pattern. It will ride out tomorrow morning. There are reports of smoke on and above the water in the Catskills, Hudson, and Mohawk valleys, as well as the immediate capital region. Unusual weather situation out there, Norm.
Joe, I have been so mad all day. I've not talked to myself at all because of that, because big high moving off the coast. The smoke was there. I saw it, and it just...
Is that part of your job, forecasting
sure.
smoke?
Sure, why not? I mean, I could have been a hero today. But
could you have blown the smoke away?
No, but it will be going, as you said. There is a front coming in to clear us out. But the smoke was there, and the winds were there, and I just didn't put 2 and 2 together at the time. But I plumped now. Anyhow, Joe, outside today it was not a bad day, especially compared to yesterday. The high was 57 degrees. Kind of chilly overnight, though, down to 26 degrees, and you can see our records are set back into the 70s. 51 and 34 is what we should have normally. And currently outside, it is cloudy right now. Temperature has dropped off just a little bit, 54, 35 degrees the dew point. So the air is still fairly dry. The barometer is on the fall. The winds are out of the south at 8 miles an hour for the time being. Precipitation today amounted to a trace in our sunrise and sunset times for you. Let's see what's going on across the rest of the Northeast, and it is a mild night for most places, except for Mount Washington as usual, where it is 29 degrees. A lot of 40s elsewhere, 55 in Boston, and you can see that we have a lot of 40s as you look westward, 47 in Syracuse, where there is some rain. And we did have a couple of calls tonight, one from Lake George reporting some smoke on the water out there, and somebody else called up claiming to be the next Supreme Court judge and saw some fire in the sky, and that's the truth. Meanwhile, a low-pressure center sitting up here over southern Canada is producing, or at least helping to push along a frontal system getting into the western part of the state. That's what's going to clear the smoke out of here later tomorrow morning. So again, if you have respiratory problems, you want to stay inside by tomorrow afternoon, you should be able to get outside. 5 o'clock satellite pictures show a lot of clouds around. You can start to see some clearing, though, out in Michigan, and that's a cooler, drier air starting to feed its way in. In the national picture, last night at this time, we had a giant storm sitting out here in the central part of the U.S., and we expected that to move out to the south, and that looks to be the case right now. It has weakened a little bit, and it's going to continue to push eastward. Here's that frontal system we were talking about. You can see it on the national map very well. Big high-pressure system sitting out over North Dakota is going to dominate our weather after the front gets through tomorrow, and I think we'll have quite a few clouds during the day, but by the time we get into tomorrow night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday look absolutely great, but it will be on the chilly side. Now, the jet stream map by Tuesday shows a northwest wind flow, and believe me, temperatures over Canada are on the cool side. I think on Wednesday we'll be lucky to get much higher than the lower 40s. The national radar is still showing quite a bit of rain around, especially out to our west. It's the rain moving in here, but very heavy thunderstorms hopefully move across the south and put out some of the fires and the showers, or I should say put out the fires over West Virginia and into parts of Tennessee. Meanwhile, we still have our 13th snow game going on, and if you can guess when the second 6-inch snowfall is going to fall, send us a postcard with the name, address, and the date that it will happen, and send it to P.O. Box 4035, Albany, New York.